And every time that, they caught him sleeping, he would just open his eyes and say amen. And you can't do anything, right? Really? Like, what are you going to say? You can't, I'm sorry, sir, you can't pray? Like, well, this is America. So,
Which I have to say, bravo, sir. Bravo.
Comic Indie Podcast. Comic Indie Podcast. Comic Indie Podcast. Comic Indie Podcast.
So, welcome to Comic Indie Podcast. My name is Ken Javier.
I'm Alex Hay.
And again, as always, I am Daniel. But for how long?
And for how long? See, we said you were going to make that a catchphrase, and it is. I like it. Let's go with it. So, talking about going with, today we are doing a book review of Alien Hunter by Mandy McMurray and Rod Thornton. This is an indie book from a local artist, Rod Thornton, who, Alex, you seem to have a connection with. So go on, sir, and let's hear.
Well, I mean, Rod is just one of those guys that I saw on Facebook. He's a popular trend. I mean, if you look for anybody who's gotten lots of likes and lots of followers out there in Houston, it's Rod Thornton, and he's one of the guys that got my attention whenever we wanted to do the YouTube. So we did a YouTube. It's out there. I mean, the audio kind of crapped out on us, but I mean, you could still make it out here and there. Anyway, his synopsis is something that Dan will go into, so I won't dive too much into that, but just talking with the guy, it's just amazing because this guy has this whole universe already figured out. Some of his personal take on the spiritual side, what he understands from it, and he kind of mixes a lot of his own imagination into this world here that we're going to start diving into. But it's very interesting. I mean, if you ever have a chance to get to talk to this guy, and even better, if you ever have a chance to have a drink with him, I mean, this is one of those occasions where he'd blow your mind.
All right.
Where's a good bar in Houston? We got to start there, invite him, and go there. That's what we're doing.
This is the Bar Indie Podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be one of those things that you might creep them out, so you might want to ease into it.
Hey, Rod, those guys in the Comic Indie said we can have a beer with you. It's cool, right?
Now blow our minds, dude. Blow our minds.
All right. Speaking of blowing minds, Dan, why don't you blow the audience's mind with this killer synopsis that I'm sure you prepared over many, many weeks.
Well, it's been an interesting book. I mean, all I've gotten is just the first issue. So I've got to say, like a good first issue, it really does bring in a punch to the point where you have to ask yourself, okay, what's next? So good on you guys. You've done some good work in this regard. But a general synopsis involves, let's see, Jedis, people of such power that they mention in the book that a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction even get it through the training, let alone survive a year, accidentally stumbling across something that could be holding a problem with the universe, let's just say. And in the middle of this, there's wizards, there's spirituality, there's high tech, and there's a lot of high tech wizardry. There's a lot of space opera, and just if you like a good old-fashioned, almost Star Wars novel with comedy, with good banter, this is a great book. And I don't want to give too much away because of plot, but again, you're dealing with you're dealing with some characters who are in and out of their depths, and because of a stupid mistake of going into the wrong tomb at the wrong time that just happens to be called the Forbidden Tomb for a reason, accidentally unleashes a problem with the universe that could cause everything to fail and society, who we know, is crumble. I'm not sure if I left anything out.
Sounds good.
There's mysteries, there's little hints, and I will give the guy this. He doesn't slow down. If you're not part of that world, he pulls you in, and that is a sign of a good story. So that's probably for later. Sorry.
All right, no apologies. This is because it's too late to apologize, Dan. So that's
my sentence will be carried out immediately. I know.
All right, so awesome. So let's kind of get into the grading of the book itself. So we usually kind of like to start with art. Dan, what did you think art-wise?
Art-wise, I got to say, I gave it a 9. I will say this for the art. It has a couple of things that I think are more technical glitches than anything else. But honestly, the person who does it is pretty much on par with what you'd find for DC, Marvel, or a half a dozen other books. He really knows his work, and it shows. I will say this for the book in general, as well as for the art. Good sirs, people who purveyor of this book, get thee a colorist now. You are doing great work, but if you had a right colorist, this thing will be flying off the shelves.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely. I mean, the cover or the color on the art I think is amazing. And, not that, I'm internet stalking you, Rod Thornton, but I did see,
Who was that? This such and such a dress?
Oh, I did see that actually there was some type of either, I don't know if it was a re-release of a cover or a different type of cover or print that you're putting out by, I think you had featured somebody off of DeviantArt, or maybe it was just displayed on Deviant. But yeah, it definitely looks the part of, one of the big two. Not saying that that's where you want to be, Rod, but definitely held in high regard for the art itself. Alex, what are you feeling about the book, art-wise?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that about the color, Dan, because his other book, Children of the Apocalypse, is actually in color. I actually own that issue, and I've got to tell you that it is amazing. I mean, colors are spot on. Like you said, it looks like it could be part of the big two. That's how good it is. Now, on this one, I will have to say that even though the artwork is great, I'm a big fan of his work, but I do have to say that the technical glitches did get to me. And those being that, throughout the book, her face kept changing. It wasn't consistent. So I think that was just one of my major annoyances. But and there was a few perspective shots that kind of didn't look as if they were, I guess, consistent as well. I mean, because when they're going through the canyon or the volcano or whatever it is,
the Great Forbidden Tomb.
Huge, yeah. You say there's like somewhat of an opening, but that opening kind of doesn't look much like an opening whenever you're looking back through it. It's just the whole changes sizes for some reasons.
Right.
But I mean, those are minor things. They're really minor. All in all, the shading is wonderful. I love how he included a lot of good cross hatching and not the same type of shading here and there. It varied throughout the entire book. So the black and white is actually enjoyable. But because of those glitches, and if it weren't because of the glitches, I'd give it a higher grade. But 8 is still a great grade for me.
Well, you know what they say, Alex. 8 is enough. So. Right, I know. I'm the worst, right? It's like this is the bad pun podcast.
Okay, if people understand that pun, then you've gone up in ranks there, dude.
That's
they
right.
Have to understand that.
Old man podcast now. So, okay. Well, no. Definitely understand what you're saying there, Alex. Art-wise, for me, I'm going to have to go with a 9 on this one. I look at it this way. And maybe just because I'm just, all about me and no about anybody else. But if I had to draw it the way he drew it, I don't think I would ever finish, because I'd probably be dead. And it would take me a million years to draw like this. So kudos to you, Rod Thornton, because this is amazing art-wise. So, okay. So, Dan, I know you did a beautiful, synopsis, but let's dive a little bit deeper into this story. Story-wise, how did you feel about this book? What did it make you feel?
I really enjoyed the fact that he takes the time to just basically give you, for lack of a term, really drives you into this world. He gives you enough explanation to kind of go, look, this is what you need to know so you don't get lost. Oh, by the way, here's a bunch of stuff we're never going to explain. But it doesn't matter, because either you'll figure it out during the course of the book, or you'll, it's not really that important. It's just flavor text anyway. And he really wraps it up into the story in a way that makes you feel like you're really there. There's somebody else, I wish I could remember who mentioned this before, but somewhere on the internet, but somebody mentioned the Clone Wars for Star Wars. Not the actual series, but when Princess Leia first says, Obi-Wan, you once served my father in the Clone Wars. For the first 3 movies, no one ever talks about the Clone Wars after that. It's just this complete mystery. They build it up later. But again, this is something that in the story, it acknowledges the relationship, but it brings people into the world faster. And he does a lot of that work in this, including with some of the mystical stuff, some of which might be Enochian for all I know. I'm not that brushed up on my Enochian, or it could just be gibberish he made up. But he really does it in a way that kind of brings the world a little bit more into life, a little bit more realistic, and he really just sells the story in that way. I think it's really fun.
Oh, now you had mentioned Enochi, so is that like the Klingon language of this book, or what is that?
Well, without giving too much away, there is an old man who is a wizard type from the looks of things, who actually feels a little bit like the original version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But Enochian is a language of angels that was invented by John Dee in the 16th century that is used in a lot of mysticism. So I don't know if he was pulling from there or whatever. If he wasn't, then I will just tell Rod that he needs to use less hyphenations and less commas in his words and more vowels. But other than that, go nuts. But no, he really brings the universe and the magic of this universe in really clearly. It's really nice.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Alex, what about you?
Well, I mean, I kind of have already some backstory just speaking with Rod, so I'm kind of cheating here with what I know. But I will have to say that trying to give myself a blind perspective and washing away everything I've heard, it does seem very intriguing. It's one of those stories that does pull you in, and you want to know more. And this being an issue one, you get so much information. It's just one of those books that you sit down, but you're not going to finish it in 5 minutes unless you're a real fast speed reader. You actually have to take the time to kind of digest everything that's going on, because some of this stuff, I mean, I know just from reading through it, should have taken hours because of all the new concepts that they're introducing. Like, for example, the language that they're speaking, it's almost as if though it's Elvian. You know, you got to admire the people that are going through and coming up with this stuff, and this the folklore for their mythology is all, even though it's conjured up from other concepts, it's still something that they have to work out. So here's the thing. I mean, got to respect these people for working out that much information and trying to make it a little bit easier to understand for us, and kind of giving us a piece of this universe piece by piece. So, I mean, all in all, the story is written by Amanda McMurray, who I think used to be a writer for DC Comics.
Really?
She's a respectable writer. I mean, and it shows. She has good writing. You can tell that this is not just a beginner writing. My only tidbits that I had with it were kind of the characters. For me, for any story, is a huge thing. And if anything is going to keep me watching, it's not so much of a story-driven episode or movie or whatever. It's more of the character mixed in. You know, how much attention do you give these characters?
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, one of my only tidbits is the characters didn't seem to me like they had their own personality per se. A lot of them had much of the same type of serious character personality. So it was a bit bland on that aspect. It's kind of like one of those deals. If you were to cover their faces and you just read the word bubbles, would you really know who's talking? So
I'll actually say for a few of them I'll say yes, but again, I agree. There is a little bit of one-dimensionality to these characters, but I also kind of attribute that to this is episode 1. We're still just basically in the first chapter. We have to give them a little bit of time, but that's what I like about some of the mysteries they've included, because it gives us a chance to get into those characters, to give us a chance to look at them and go, okay, who are these people?
Yeah. I mean, and that was one of my only tidbits. That, and then the other tidbit that I had was the word bubbles were a little confusing for me. I had to kind of figure it out. It took me a moment to pause to look for who was talking. So that was another thing for me. And in a story, in a comic book, if you have to pause to try to figure something out, it's kind of one of those things where you're taking more time just trying to dematerialize a comic versus just read through it like you should. And it's not just the word bubbles themselves, but also the pictures. Sometimes I was reading down a page when I should have been reading across both pages.
Yeah, I will say there was that.
So, yeah, there were a lot of splash pages in there. I mean, definitely got to give it up to the art on that. I mean, some of these is that right? Is it called a splash page when I'm looking at 2 pages and it's 1 page?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's a double page spread.
It's a double page spread, right? So it was spread so much that I had a hard time, and I don't read as good as anybody of one of you guys. So yeah, they were the word bubbles were a little busy. I kind of agree with you on that one, Alex.
But all in all, it was a great story. I mean, I loved it because of all the information I was getting. It's just one of those things where, you know, you're getting a big bang for your buck. So for me, it's a huge 8.
All right, okay, a huge 8. All right, I like that. Okay. You know, I'm gonna have to kind of go the other direction, guys, and I'm gonna go 7. And here's the reason why. So recently, I learned from a very wise person that if I were drunk and I were in a bar and I had to kind of tell this story, you know, how easily could I tell it? Or, oh my goodness, am I getting this thing wrong, Dan? Or was that the originality part?
Thank you for the compliment, my son. Go in peace.
Yes. So in any event, story-wise, you know, I kind of look at it as, you know, okay, so what is the base of it happening? Basically, and I think you alluded to it earlier, is, you know, we got some people who are going into a forbidden place. But, you know, they're like and I know we keep on going back to the Star Wars analogies, but, you know, they're basically just, you know, young young Jedi or the Padawans, right? There, and only a percentage of them will make it, right? So,
Yeah.
Definitely I'm not going to be one of the alien hunters because I'm not even going to make it past the first cut. Plus, they got to go down a rope. Like, I've never climbed a rope in my life, so I don't think I would even be able to make it. But in any event, it's, hey, I'm here at this place. I'm kind of messing at this place, and now, kind of things are happening. And, I kind of feel like I've read this story before, but, so originality wise, I'm going to kind of, not to oversimplify it, because again, there are so many details in the originality aspects of it, which I got to give it, a huge thumbs up. But story arc wise, I feel like I've kind of read something like this before. Hey, why did those people go in there? You shouldn't have gone in there. And then all of a sudden now there's something happening. And now, you have this council of elders or the Jedi Council basically saying, well, let's go fix it and stuff. But I don't know. I kind of sound like it's a little harsh, but it's not. And it's not Star Wars that we're reading, but it's definitely something like it, I guess I could say.
Well, I would agree with you. There's a lot of Star Wars-like elements to it. And number one, space mages are everywhere. Let's not lie. That's just how it is. Thank you, Star Wars. But it's just how it's presented, I think, is really cool. But I agree with you that it does have some issues in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it's for example, every story's already been told.
Yeah.
So it's just the way it's presented for me in that aspect.
And speaking of presentation, let's get into the originality of it. Dan, how original was this book?
Well, that's the thing. You have a point about, it's mages in space, and here's great evil of the universe. But how it was presented, I actually thought it was really well done. If nothing else, it's really weird to start off a book with a triad, particularly two males and a female, that basically are bantering almost the whole time. It really kind of, in basically your usual almost sci-fi Dungeons and Dragons sort of layer, it really came through very well. I'm actually going to give it a 7.5 in originality, mostly because of how they interwove the aspects of the world, the ideas of the world, and everything else like that. And I'm also going to, I hate to say it, the almost architecture style and pinpoint precision of some of the art added to that to me, so that the visual aesthetic of a spacefaring race added to the feel of the originality to me, just how it was done and how it was presented. I gotta say, normally I go for what was the story and plot base, but in this case I'm gonna have to add in the art just a little bit. So it was a 7.5 for me.
7.5 for the Dan. All right, Alex, how about you, sir?
Oh, I also like the originality aspect, where there's stories that have been told with elves, there's stories that have been told with spacefaring bounty hunters, and there's stories that have been told with aspects with God, for example, because and here you'll hear the word mentioned El, and for anybody that knows that's the old Hebrew language, even I guess before Hebrew, where they brought in El, and it became known as God. So you've got so many different concepts that are already known, but he's mixed them in such a way to where, hey, you haven't seen it like this before. So
I was wondering if he was bringing in ceremonial magic and Kabbalism.
Yep. So I mean, it's kind of like, hey, what do you like? It's got it, There's probably no complaint for anybody. But I think my only tidbit again would be that it's not a completely original story where it's having to introduce new concepts.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So originality, like I said, this is where I'm going to actually go a little bit higher than I did on story, and I am going to give it an 8. And again, reason being, and I know, not that it's, super different now, but, I like that, we're following, a female hero in this aspect, or a female chosen one. And not to say that, comics are all, dominated by males, but they're kind of dominated by males, right? or it seems like, the women are being kind of objectified. Or I think of, the comics from the 90s where, Spider-Man is coming home to Mary Jane, and Mary Jane just looks like, goddamn, Mary Jane, and it just, all the tights and Psylocke making me feel all funny and stuff growing up. Not to say that the alien hunter is not an attractive woman. She's very, very, very beautiful, but strong though. So
actually, I'm wondering if the other two people with her are actually more central to the story than we know.
I don't know, because
it almost seems like they would be. I mean, because they focus on those three characters from the beginning to the end.
True.
And they did use the phrase triune, which means threefold. So again, we're going to be dealing. I would be surprised if these guys were more involved. They just for some reason weren't marked, so they didn't get further. But I'd really like to see these guys return because I think they make, if nothing else, a good counterbalance to
Yeah, no,
our
I mean,
antagonist.
yeah, I mean the banter is great, and it's like, why are we here again? What are we doing? So definitely a fun bunch. But definitely, I think she's the gutsiest one, or the ones with the most gusto of the group. But no, like I said, I really like the originality wise. I mean, just kind of looking at it, and and we're not spoiling anything by saying this, and maybe I need some clarification. So was like the Obi-Wan guy? Was he just hanging out there? Is he guarding that gate, or what is he doing down there to begin with?
Well, they don't actually specify in the story. We could just, speculate, as it were. But no, it looked like he's been there for a while at least.
All right, I'm just saying he did a bad job. I don't think he took a nap and he just let these people come in and release the demon. I'm just saying, maybe he needs to take a little self-accountability for himself.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things where this entire time he's been very vigilant, and just that one moment when he starts to meditate, he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna take it easy for this 1 hour, and
he was meditating. He was sleeping. That's what he was doing. Kind of on a short story. So, like my dad, and I don't mean to put him out on blast, but he used to work for a hospital, and he used to work night shift. And every time that they caught him sleeping, he would just open his eyes and say "Amen," and you can't do anything, right? Really? Like, what are you gonna say? You can't. I'm sorry, sir. You can't pray. This is America.
Which I have to say, bravo, sir. Bravo.
He was really sleeping though, right? This is a horrible example. But in any event, so it looks like we've kind of gone through the tallies, and through our power of Excel, shouts out to you, Microsoft Office, we can tabulate averages and overall scores. And the book, should I just go ahead and just say what the score is, guys?
Go for it.
Go for it. All right, Alien Hunter, you come in at an 8.1 on the comic indie scale. Dan, hit me with the ding.
Bing!
There we go. I said a ding, but it is a bing. So
Whatever.
8.1. So what does that mean to Space Rider, Speak No Evil, Severed Souls, Prometheus? I think, gentlemen, we have a new winner.
I think we got a new winner, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Alien Hunter, you have de-seated or unseated, or basically just kind of gently and professionally pushed Speak No Evil to the side. And now you, sir and sirs, or madams, sir and madams, right? I'm sorry, right? I'm all talking about female heroism here. Are now sitting atop the comic indie throne with an 8.1. So very well to you, team of McMurray and Thornton.
Hats off, and another bing to you. Congratulations.
All right.
It's the first time we hit the 8 threshold. That's amazing.
We have a B student.
That's it. B's get degrees. So
there you go.
B's, but definitely this would make the comic indie parents much prouder, I suppose. So
you get to have the bumper sticker. My comic indie is it honor student?
8.1, right? Hey, Rod McMurray, why don't you put this sticker on your book? All right. So speaking of comic indie, Alex, you want to say anything about the group?
No. If you guys have a comic that you'd like us to review, feel free to send us an email and a sample of your work at info@comicindie.com. I'm sorry, submissions@comicindie.com.
Oh, look, see, all the books are going to the wrong place now, Alex.
Now they must submit.
How about Dan? You know what? Congratulations to you, sir. I heard you actually were able to finish one of your projects and get it out there to the world. Do you mind telling folks where they can find your stuff?
Not at all. Not at all. I actually just completed a recent space opera book, which is why I think this comic we're reviewing has been very apropos, and I thank you guys for that in every respect. But I have a new book out. It's called Faulty Destinies. It's a space opera, or if you prefer the old word, planetary opera, romantic comedy, which is just a wild ride. I highly recommend everyone pick it up. You can find it at Amazon.com. It is under Kindle edition right now. And by the time this podcast goes out, it might actually be out for print, and hopefully very soon it'll be out on audio.
Awesome. Are you going to be doing your own audio, Dan?
We shall see. I'll see what the other people, the professionals, have to say about that. But we'll see.
Just said you got a knack for it. I would listen to a podcast from you, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, as long as you don't put it on auto tune, I think you'll be fine.
Oh, no auto tune for me. I'll just stick to my usual voice making ability. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, that was amazing.
Is that the part that's going to be doing the erotica?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe near the end when it gets a little breathy and stuff. I don't know.
All right. Cool.
But
All right.
like I said, if you get a chance, please check it out. I thank you, by the way. Faulty Destinies is the name of the book again.
All right, very, very good work, sir. Very good work. And like Alex had mentioned, if you are interested in having your book reviewed by the Comic Indie Gang, please send your submissions to submissions@comicindie.com. Please feel free to check out our website, comicindie.com, as well, where you can find this podcast and many other podcasts and awesome interviews and other web content and shows that we really have worked very hard to kind of showcase the indie comic community out there. Again, the indie community is a living, breathing thing, and definitely we want to embrace the technology that we have and bring you indie artists out to the forefront. And we'd love to jam and collaborate with you and just hear about all the awesome things that you are doing out there. But for Comic Indie, I'm Ken Javier.
I'm Alex A.
Once again, I am Daniel.
And you've been listening to Comic Indie Podcast.